Wendy, what can you tell us more about the Celtics being for sale?
This is certainly the billionaire class and the investment bankers reacted big time to this news coming out yesterday. And by the way, it was not a coincidence that this was announced the same day that Jayson Tatum and Derek White were locked down, assuring that the Celtics front line, their starters, are now all locked down for years into the future. So here's the thing. This is a fascinating moment because what Wyc Grousbeck, the owner of the Celtics, the controlling owner, wants to do is he wants to sell the team, but not actually give up control of the team for another 4 years. Now, how do you do that? And why would you do that? Well, here's why. Because the starting lineup starting next season, not this season that we're in now. We're now functionally in the 2024-25 season. Starting in the 2025-26 season, the Celtics starting lineup just that year will make $200 million. Next year, the Celtics in salary and luxury tax are faced with about a $500 million bill. They are going to be losing absolute gobs of money. So what Wyc Grousbeck wants to do is he wants to sell the team, get money for the team, then have the new owner pay all of the losses for the next 4 years while they're potentially winning more championships, while he gets to still run the show and accept the trophies. Now, if you're excited about buying something like that, call Wyc Grousbeck. He's listening to offers. But I will say this. The Celtics are one of the prime assets in sports in the world. Probably a top 10 property in the world. Maybe a top 5 property in America. So when you have an asset like that has that kind of value, under those terms, I'm not sure he's going to maximize the sale, but I would expect that this sale would smash all existing records for the purchase of a sports franchise in the world. That's how valuable the Celtics are right now. I just don't know if those terms, that is a wild set of asks.
Yeah,
so, look, you can only get what you ask for. Wyc Grousbeck did not become rich by, looking for deals that didn't favor him. But I got to say, that statement was a whopper, what he's asking for in the new owner.
Yeah, that's crazy. Carlin told me during the commercial break he was thinking about buying them. All right, let's circle back to Tatum, who will now be the best paid player in the league. Chiney, do you think that Tatum is a top player in this league?
Ooh, this is very, very tricky because I really think we should be more so focusing on the Celtics duo, Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, both playing top 10 basketball, basically where we saw in the NBA Finals having 2 of the top 10 players in the NBA. No other team had a duo like that to finish the season. I did vote Jayson Tatum first team All-NBA. But here's my list, okay? So if we're going to go top 5, right? Nikola Jokic, obviously, Mr. Triple-Double. Luka Doncic, who led the league in scoring at 34 points per game. Giannis Antetokounmpo, who averaged 30 on 60% shooting. I know there was a lot of criticism in Milwaukee, but still, those numbers are insane from Giannis. SGA has to be in the mix, one of the most efficient guards. And then that leaves a final spot that is up for grabs. And I think it's very difficult because Jayson Tatum right now, based off of how we finished, I think he takes a lot of criticism, but his consistency needs to be respected. In the postseason, I believe he averaged 25, 9, and 6. In the regular season, 27 and 8. And some people don't really understand that he was asked to do more with less because of the talent that surrounded him. Adding Kristaps Porzingis, who I have called from day one a huge X factor, so much to the point that I think other people, other teams, are looking for their own version of stretch bigs. That's why we're talking about Lauri Markkanen a lot in the NBA, especially with teams trying to improve. You've got Drew Holiday that helped out a lot. Derek White, who continues to take steps in improvement. So Jayson Tatum had to be Mr. Consistency, which he was in the regular season, and then try to fulfill the expectations of the world, trying to be that guy in the postseason where we saw there were some lulls, but still he was consistent. And I do think that Jaylen Brown's surge as Finals MVP, Eastern Conference Finals MVP, confuses the importance of Jayson Tatum to the Celtics squad. The only caveat I had, the only thing that could make Tatum out of top 5 get bumped out to me is the Joel Embiid factor. Joel Embiid averaged 34, but only played 39 regular season games. So if you have to take one person off, if Joel Embiid was healthy, then maybe you'd say, okay, I'm not sure if Jayson Tatum is in the mix based off of those other guys that I mentioned. So overall, yes, where we finished the season, top 5. And I do think that the confidence he built from winning a championship will solidify that for the Celtics in the years to come.
Who do you think improved their title hopes more, the Mavs or the Sixers?
Look, it's summertime. Everybody has their summer bodies ready. And on paper, the Sixers, they're looking sexy. They're looking good. They're stepping outside, enjoying the warmth, and they're feeling themselves, y'all. Why? Because Daryl Morey is a master chef, and the ingredients are all coming together. Now, if you are building a trio, it doesn't get better than what you see that the Sixers have built on the floor. You have a speedy point guard in Tyrese Maxey that was extended, and he also has the versatility based off of filling the shoes of no James Harden to be able to play on ball and off ball. Also, Joel Embiid, who was on pace for MVP, but obviously the concern is health. Now you add Andre Drummond, one of the best rebounders in the league that can sort of hold things down if he is out for a game or so. And last but not least, the final ingredient, Paul George. I mean, if you combine Paul George, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey, I believe it's 83 points, 35, 26, and 23. They touch all aspects of the floor in half court on offense. Point guard, downhill, pick and roll, Joel Embiid throw it in, Paul George kick it out on the opposite side. One of the best isolation 6'8" big guy scorers. This is Hooper's heaven. But also, one thing I love about Philly, what we've seen over the last few years is also their length defensively. They have Joel Embiid, Paul George can extend. You've got Maxey that's able to be out there and pressure defensively. So overall, if you look on both sides of the ball, the Sixers look like, for so many years, we've seen Joel Embiid throughout his career get to the postseason, fall short. Get to the postseason, we see some tears. Get to the postseason, not banged up and not really being his best self. Overall, if you look at what they have done, there are expectations, if they are healthy, to not only dominate, but potentially come out of the East. If you put that in contrast to the Mavs still have big question marks on their identity defensively. Here in Philly, those questions have been answered because they're the city of the answer, right?
Well, first of all, Chiney, I want to just say I appreciate you recognizing the hard work I've put into my summer body. Thank you for that.
You're looking good.
Go unappreciated. Thank you. It's the Mavericks to me, and it's for a couple of reasons. I can't argue. I think right now, with Embiid, with Maxey, and with Paul George on the court, that's a dynamic big three, perhaps the best in the league at the moment. But they have to be on the court. Paul George was on the court this year in a contract year. Was it coincidental? I don't know. I don't know. But I can only look at the 4 years prior and understand that he missed roughly 40% of his games on average over those 4 years prior to this year. We know what the Joel Embiid injury issues have been. We don't have to go through that. When I look at the Mavericks, Klay Thompson has been on the court here the last couple of years since his injury. We're not going to for a minute try to plead his case for being the same player that he was. But in terms of fit, as well as Paul George as a great two-way player fits the Sixers, I think Klay Thompson here in his role with the Mavericks addresses what their biggest issue was when it came to the finals. I mean, they are right there in making the finals because they attempted so many threes during the year, but they didn't make nearly as many as they needed to. They finished 13th in the league in three-point field goal percentage, but second in attempts. Klay needs to be that guy who can knock down those shots, and in an analytically driven league, that's what this is going to be about. I think employed in the right way, which is 30 minutes and on the floor at the end when it matters for a big shot, I think the Mavericks have put themselves closer to a championship here than the Sixers have.
Well, at the end of the day, the Mavericks have added a spectacularly good-fitting role player. But the Sixers are the ones who hit the grand slam here. They've added an all-NBA player who is a two-way wing, who is, no matter what the Sixers were doing, they are looking up at the Celtics, and they got to figure out how are we going to deal with this power on the wings with Tatum and Brown and even Derek White. How are we going to deal with that? You had to get a guy who was not going to interfere with Embiid, not going to interfere with Maxey, and could play on the wing. I mean, this was really serendipitous. I really can't say that enough. Paul George really only had one option at the end of the day if he wanted max money to sign. There were possibilities of him getting traded places, but obviously those didn't work out. The place that made sense where he could play for a championship was one spot, Philadelphia, who could give him that $212 million. And if you're Philly, how many max players were on the market that were available for you to sign? One. This was a 1-and-1 situation, and it just so happened that the fit was perfect. You don't get to go to the superstar store and say, I have these 7 choices, I'm going to pick this one. They had a choice of 1, and it just so happened this fit goes right alongside without causing any issue in exactly what they need. So that's why I have to say that in terms of the acquisition, it's just so terrific for Philadelphia. Now, who might be closer? Carlin, you might be right. Dallas might be closer, but they started closer. And Philly may need another transaction cycle to build up this roster, because part of what it means when you have a bunch of salary cap space is you've emptied out your roster. And we've seen historically teams that do this typically aren't at their best until at least the second season. So we may get to a year from now and say, boy, the Klay Thompson acquisition really elevated the Mavericks. But overall, on balance, I think the Sixers were using the verb improved. I think they win that one.
I'm on fire. It's NBA over here.